Hi, my name's Dave Peters. I'm the lead instructor here at Rumble Fitness, and this is a documentary on how to return back from COVID and the lockdown restrictions that have been put upon us. I think I speak for most people when I say that my training has it certainly hasn't been thrown out the window. I wouldn't say that I haven't done anything at all, but I could definitely say that I can sympathise with a lot of people who've had their training quite drastically impacted by the fact that we've been in these lockdown restrictions. And I think it's totally normal for most people's routine to change. I mean, firstly, our lifestyles at home have changed. So usually, where we might train at certain times in the day, we're now finding ourselves with less to do throughout the days. We're not traveling as far as we would normally for work and all of these kind of things. So I think it's quite normal to suggest that actually most people's training has differed. Certainly the times of day. I don't think it's helped people that we've been doing this through winter as well now. And I don't know if anybody really kind of expected it to go on that long. And I think when the initial lockdowns happened in the sort of early spring, summertime, I think that's when everyone kind of took advantage of the good weather we had at the time, maybe took advantage of having some time off. It was kind of like a novelty almost that we had as much time as we did to maybe try things differently, get out and do some more running, some cycling and some bits and pieces like that. And I was certainly one of those people that benefited from that extra time to be able to get out on the roads and in the trails and run. I think since the second, and then especially with the third lockdown, I think people have really struggled a lot more, and I think it's brought on a lot more anxiety about returning back to the gyms or back to a normal routine. And certainly a lot of the clients that I talk to day to day are giving me those sort of pointers as feedback. So I think, from my own point of view, I definitely had some anxieties about returning back to training and certainly returning back to competition. That's probably a personal issue with myself, that I'll put quite a bit of pressure on myself to perform and compete and do well. And it's certainly one of the things which I think is one of the areas that I'm working on myself, which is to try and take a little bit more relaxed approach back to coming back to these events when they eventually do get back on the calendar. Just purely because it's a bit, it's one of those times where I think we do need to be kind to ourselves. And I think we do need to realise that what we've all been through and going through still continuously, but hopefully now looking like we may be on the way out of it, I think now it's a time to sort of be kinder to ourselves, try and ease ourselves back to activity, certainly just to get ourselves back to some level of fitness and be prepared and ready that when the things that we've really been missing, that we've not been able to do for the last few months, come back, that actually we're in, half decent shape to go and enjoy them to the full max. I think firstly, the anxieties that we have about returning need to be squashed, and I think we can only do that if we kind of start preparing ourselves for exercising again. And secondly, those things that we've missed, we want to make sure that we can come back and really enjoy them. And I know for a fact with myself that if I come back into a position where, I get back to obstacle training, for example, and I can't hang on the obstacles or I can't move as smoothly as I once did, I'm gonna find that quite difficult to motivate myself to come back, but also to enjoy it. And ultimately, with all of the stuff we've missed out on all this time, I think it's really important that the first thing we can do is enjoy being back. And I'm not saying I have to come back into an elite condition. I'm not saying that anyone should really, but I think if we can prepare ourselves for coming back mentally, physically, then at least we can have a better chance of enjoying it as we move forwards. I think throughout lockdown, I've kind of found myself asking lots of questions about myself. I was unlucky enough to find myself injured. And again, whenever I get injured, I always struggle with it anyway. I'm quite an active person. I've always been active. I've always took part in sport and activity. And I think coming back from those things alone are big problems and big issues for people to do alone anyway. So when you're kind of having to do that in a lockdown, where you haven't been able to meet people socially, and train with people, it's hard enough anyway. So I think if I can try and get my head around this way of kind of not setting the high expectations that I have once before, it's certainly going to help me when it comes to getting back on the road and actually hitting training harder and actually pushing a bit harder towards competitions. And ultimately, not everybody competes, and they may just want to take part, and that's absolutely fine. And that means you just need to be in a condition to take part, And so wherever your sort of goals are, that's kind of where you should head with your training. So for me, my direction's changed a little bit over the last year or so. High rocks has become a big part of what I do alongside the obstacle course racing, and I need to juggle somehow the training for my high rocks, which I'm looking to try and compete in professionally, with the endurance side of the obstacle course racing. So it's definitely got to be a fine balance. And the hardest thing about coming back to all of this is knowing how big a task that is. And so, it's certainly going to be a challenge for me to come back from that bit, from this sort of time away. And it's certainly something to overcome, but definitely the things that have held me back the most in terms of coming back to training have been because I've set myself those high expectations. I've looked at my previous best, I've looked at what I was lifting before, what I was running before, and I've beaten myself up a little bit about what's really, what I should be doing. And in reality, with all of this that's been going on with the lockdown restrictions, it's, everybody needs to be that little bit calmer and kinder on themselves. And yeah, you could have been out working, but there's multiple reasons why maybe you haven't. And I think for me, definitely, my focus has really been on the business. My focus has been on generating enough income to hold the business in a financial stable position, which I've been lucky enough to do with the support I have from a great community of people. So now that the focus is starting to swing about a return, it's not just a return for business, but it's also a return for me to get ready for that training and that competition that awaits me, and ready for January sort of next year when I'll be competing in the professional divisions. The things that have kept me going throughout this time, I've got a good community of people around me. I'm lucky that I'm part of a good team. I've got a great team of athletes and runners and people that really kind of support each other. So as much as I'll try and support them through these lockdowns, they've definitely done the same for me. And just seeing people out there training, and competing, talking to other coaches around the country and sharing some ideas on what we can all do to kind of help each other along has really helped me, definitely. I think when it comes to my own training, the thing that's maybe stopped me from stopping completely when I've felt rubbish or not wanting to train is seeing the success of the athletes that I coach doing well. I think I take my hat off to the guys. Some of the guys who are on programs with me have really kind of got their head down and dedicated themselves to their programs despite all of this stuff with the restrictions going on. And I think they're starting to reap the benefits of that by seeing the increases in their fitness and the changes in their ability. So that's definitely been a big motivator for me, and it's definitely been something which has helped keep me going throughout all of this time, for sure. So the changes that I've made to my own training, I've taken a training program which has been written for me. I've had a coach write it for me. I'm a big believer that good coaches get coached themselves. So I've had a coaching program written for me. I've adjusted a few bits myself which maybe fit the routine a little bit more, but ultimately it means that I've taken my mind away from my own training, and it allows me to be free to just commit to the plan that's been written. Put the trust in the plan, put the trust in the coach, and kind of go with it from there. So firstly, I haven't been penciling in my own training. That's the biggest thing. I think having someone else in control of what it is that I'm doing, that's made a big difference to me, in terms of me being sort of able to commit to that fully and not rip it to shreds and always sort of analyze everything. I overanalyze quite a lot of my own stuff. So giving that freedom of someone else to work for it for me is going to really help me. The other biggest changes, I suppose, is that I've set clear targets and goals for the whole year. I haven't just sort of looked at the short term and just gone, right, there's the goal there. No, and I haven't just focused on a long term. I think a lot of people talk about short and long term goals as really direct. So short term, literally setting a goal which is going to get them started, and then long term being the big ambition. But people seem to forget the time in between. And I think also people forget the breakdown that you can have a long, a mid and a long term goal for just a short-term goal. You can break it down into those subcategories and really work towards the goals that you're looking at. So I've never really set too far ahead, whereas now I've kind of got focus for the whole year. And I think that's going to help me focus alongside my work, alongside the training hours that are available to me, and be able to share it with people of similar training ilk, These restrictions is all about fun. I think you have to kind of find whatever it is that you've been missing, find the parts which have kind of been motivating for you in the past, and find out what it is that stopped you from being able to do that as the restrictions have been in place. And whatever those things were, I think you need to try and find those solutions. It's certainly the thing for me. So for me, it's been the social interaction, training alongside colleagues, peers, people who I compete alongside, and also kind of comparing myself to those other people as well, and using them as markers for me to keep working hard, to keep pushing my own ability and see where I'm at. So I think if you know what it is, if it's a social interaction, then I think, getting out there and actually, as soon as you have that availability, arranging that to find those places to train with people, to go and find your friends, if you can, and getting out and running with people or training with one other person as the restrictions allow. I think those small little things are the key to it. I think if your motivation is competition, then I think you need to go and find the competitions that are going to be on, later in the year, and find the things that you enjoy doing. And whatever it is that gets you going, whatever it is that gets you excited and motivated to train hard and work hard, and I say hard with relative, everybody's different, so whatever is hard for you, set your boundaries and go out to enjoy yourself again and find what's been missing from your life during the restrictions. And I think if you can do that, then you're going to be setting yourself up and putting yourself on a path to success no matter what, because at the end of the day, if you do nothing but just enjoy yourself, it's one thing we've all really suffered with over this last 12 months. And I think going out and making a plan that's in place, ready to go, is the key to this. Now that we have some dates to work towards, and yes, they might be a little bit flexible still, but we have a rough idea of what we can work towards. And I think going out and setting yourself a plan that fits with that will help you to really kind of work towards it. Doing the work now, putting in the hard hours now, which are going to help benefit you when you come back, that you can take part in the things that you want to do, that you can still run the 5K that you wanted to run, whatever it is your goal is. If you're doing the work now because you've got that end goal and you've got the training with your friends, whatever it is that you're doing, I think if you've got all of those things lined up, ready to go, it gives you more purpose, it gives you more reason to go out and do it. And I think that's certainly where I'm coming at things from. And that's a little bit different to previous years. So I'm excited to see where it can take me. Excited and nervous about coming back. I have reasonable anxieties about returning. I think everybody has. I think it's normal at this point in time that people don't really know what to expect when they come back to it, to everything being the way that things have been, all restricted and lockdowns and changes to routines and jobs and all of this sort of stuff. It's natural, I think, for people to have those anxieties. So I certainly have them about returning back and how close to normal are things going to be. Is it going to be different? Am I going to like the new different? All of these things. But ultimately, I think the anxiety or the nervousness, more so maybe, about coming back is overridden by that excitement. And that's because, going back to what I was saying about goal setting, it's if I've set those targets and those targets are built around what I enjoy and what I want to get back to and what I want to be able to do again, then I'm only ever putting myself in a positive position, and then everything else sort of follows on from that. All of the competitiveness, all of the high-end stuff, the hard work, the intense stuff that's going to come after that is all going to be a lot easier to follow. Whereas if I look too far down the line and I look at that sort of trying to get into an elite mindset, I suppose, then it's going to be a lot more difficult from the outset to get that going. And I think it's kind of similar to that fear thing that I've talked about in previous times. I always see fear as a way of preparing yourself for something. Fear is nothing to be afraid of, providing it's using the cues that are actually going to push you forwards and actually going to give you the information that you need to prepare yourself to do something. So I think as long as you do that, then you've got every chance of coming back into a positive mindset, coming back with a happy being, a happy sort of soul, everything around you feeling good. And I think the anxieties and nervousness will be far outweighed by the excitement for coming back to doing what I do and what I enjoy most.